I'm Pat Barkey, N9RV, and I'm going to tell you about how to lose. And you're up there now.
DG says the close races are great unless you're the second place guy. So this is Pat's legacy contest. So I'll let you have that.
Not mine, right? Sweepstakes, different contest, right? As a matter of fact, it's a really cool contest because it's unlike anything else, as most of you know. It is a long-lived contest. When Fred Lahm was alive, Mr. DX, he ran 2 domestic contests. The first is Sweepstakes, and the second is? Wrong. Come on. The Wisconsin QSO party. All right. It goes back a long way. So, I mean, it has a long exchange, which is based on the old NTS, not the current NTS, message preamble, which is archaic to many people, but there it is. That's its legacy. Here's a couple of pictures to kind of remind us of that legacy. W9IOP was W2IOP. There's rumored to be some extra ERP in that big rack he's flipping switches on the left-hand side. He was kind of untouchable, but nobody had actually visited the place. And then, of course, we have in the middle our very own Tim Duffy with Tomcat CX at their wonderfully crafted station, now gone, in Sharon, Pennsylvania. And finally, in the upper right, we have an SK, unfortunately, K7JA, who was K7 VPF in those days, who piloted the old foul weather Bluff station from W7RM to 3 years of both mode victories. So he was the N5TJ of that era, and everyone remembers that, right? I do. So we're going to start out by just talking a little bit about ourselves. So let's talk a little bit about Chris's setup. Chris, it's all yours.
All right. Get to raise this up. So my station, Ranching, is relatively new. We got the tower up in September of last year, and kind of a hodgepodge of antennas and getting it all together. It's on 20 acres in the middle of Montana. No power, it's all generator. And this might have been Sweepstakes, this photo. 2 ICOM 7610s, an Alpha 87, and an ACOM 2000. I use the MOAS, which is the mother of all switches, for all of my automation. Everything goes through that. It's a lot of work, but when it's set, it's set. So that's great. One thing about my station is there are no services. There's no water, there's no toilet, there's nothing. If you want to be comfortable, you got to go somewhere else. But if you're in Montana, you'll be Montana loud. So there's that. It's also very quiet. So it's a lot of work. I built it all myself, other than the 500 other people that have helped do it. So it's kind of a labor of love, if nothing else. So here's my antennas, 100 feet around 55, 2 element 40 on top, 5 element 20 meter LWA, 15 meter Yagi pointed at Europe, a Skyhawk on a rotor at 44 feet, another Europe on 10, and then a little bitty 5 element 10 towards southeast. I have a 40 meter 4 square, an 80 meter core wave vertical, and a 160 T-top, which wasn't used in this contest. But I have a little spider beam at 30 feet pointed south for the Californians. And in-band is very important. So I have little receive verticals about 800 feet away, and I can switch any radio at any band at any time. Same band, different band, doesn't matter. Everything is automatic, which is really cool. Some vert beverages, which are decent when there's noise, but there's very, very little noise anyway. But single tower station, and operating in the middle of nowhere on a generator. Here's my switching wall. It's going to change after this, but it looks worse than it actually is. Yeah, it is wireless. All the filtering, all the chokes, all that stuff. I built a lot of it myself. Some of the bigger stuff is, of course, commercial, but split directions is kind of a big point of my station. So a lot of versatility, especially from the middle of the country. It's really, really important. Fixed antennas in the main directions, and then rotary antennas to fill the gaps. In band, again, very important. And it's kind of impressive, the isolation, just having geographic distance instead of, weird filtering and stuff. Just get it far away. Did a lot of HFTA, and so far every antenna I've put up, the HFTA has matched exactly comparatively, which is kind of cool. So the highest tower I really need is 70 feet for anything other than 40. So that's kind of helpful. But it's a little station, but turns out sometimes that's okay. So.
I have a slightly different setup. Well, one thing about Chris's station is it's, what, a year old or less than a year old in terms of the tower. All my antennas went up in 2010. There's also something else different, which is just more of an asterisk on this, and that is Montana is a vastly different state west and east of the Rockies. And I'm west of the Rockies, so I have mountains, I have trees, I have tall towers. I transplanted my my Indiana contest station almost totally over to Montana. I put it up because I was tired of seeing it piled up in the corner. That's my 2040 towers are rotating 180 feet. Room 55 with a 3-high stack on 20 and a 4-element OWA at 160 feet. It's a big antenna. It doesn't look that big in that picture. That's kind of the picture of it going up. Put up 12 Yagis in one day with a crane. Worked out to be $140 per Yagi. I thought it was worth it. It really made the job go fast. But you see the right-hand picture, I have another rotary tower that has 10 and 15 meter stacks. And what I like to say is that be nice to me or I'll point my antenna at you. It is something that is, rotary tower is a DXer's dream. You're loud in one direction. And we got rid of those DXers a few minutes ago. So now we're contesters and we need to be loud in more than one direction, as Chris's station so well does. So I do have another tower, which is a Pyrod at 100 feet with independent rotors for 2015-10. Why don't I have any lower towers? Well, you see that tree next to that rotary tower? The trees are 100 feet. So you got to be at 100 feet or your boom hits the tree when it turns. It's kind of one of those QTHs. I have a 4-square and 80 in the woods, which pictures really well. Don't you think? Can't you really appreciate the fine detail in that picture? There's a 4-square in there, and those of you who know me well, I am an economist, not an engineer, and I can't measure things, so it's really not a 4-square, it's a 4 trapezoid due to my measuring ability and a 160 meter array. My station is changing, but it's fundamentally thanks to the advice of this guy over here. I've got 2 ICOMs, 2 amps, it's SO2R capable station. And since we're strutting our switch huts, I'll show you mine. Yeah, I got a little building full of lots of cables. So now let's get into the competition. Want to talk about where we are?
Yeah, so like Pat said, Montana is very different. It's also very big. I'm right in the middle of the state, very much central Montana, town of Shawmut, population 44. And I picked it solely for radio, that's it. Unfortunately, Pat has to live and commute and work and do what he does at his house, so he was a little more constrained. But being further west actually helped him out a lot in some respects, and then in other areas I was able to gain an advantage. So I tried to play to those strengths. It's hard because I'm not really a sweepstakes guy. I don't like this contest. Yeah, it's not my favorite. See my talk later, I'll tell you why. So I missed CQ Worldwide. I missed all the big ones that I wanted to do. So this was my consolation prize, was to do sweepstakes. It was like, all right, cool. My highest high band antenna was at 44 feet. The 240, of course, was great at 100, but everything was kind of low. So the strategy was kind of, I'm further east, so I need to capitalize on that. I guess it worked out. Yeah. This one's yours.
This is really the story. So we struggled to how to make this into a 15-minute presentation because what can you say? He beat me by less than 1 Q per hour, so that made me a loser. I'm first among losers, and there I am. It's a, when you look at a list of sweepstakes, these folks all did 24 hours. And it's one contest for the first 8 and it's another for the final. And it's a tight competition, but all these folks have been doing this for a long, long time, with the exception of this guy, who just kind of walked in and won everything. But these calls, you know them, a lot of them are Hall of Fame calls. People like W0UA, my God, he goes back to the era I showed you with Chip Margelli, winning 3 sweepstakes both modes in a row. And when you run a sweepstakes, this is what you face, okay? This is a compilation, as many of these graphs I have to show are. It's a compilation of how many stations, how many contacts are made every minute of this 30-hour duration contest. Only 24 hours, of course, are what you're allowed to work. And you can see what happens. You know, it took a while. A few people, it took them a while to get their radio tuned up or something. I don't know what happened the first minute. But, you know, we went from 538 Qs an hour at the end of the first hour to precisely 1 Q at 08:26, which, you know, we're a big country, depending on where you are, what that local time is. How many people would struggle with an off-time strategy with this contest? I mean, I'm curious. I guess I've left a recorder on to see what happens. Presumably there's nets and things that take over there, but there's certainly no contest. And then you go into the daylight in the second day, and it becomes a totally different contest. As most of you know that operate it, let's look at this a slightly different way, though. And it's kind of cool. You can crunch these public logs, and you can say, okay, KM7W is on, radio's on. Do you have filaments? I guess you do have tube amplifiers. So they're glowing. How many people are available for KM7W to work in every 5-minute segment? So if you submitted a log as a Cabrilla log and you made a queue in 5 minutes, you're in this list. And if KM7W needs you, you're on the graph, all right? And so you start out with, of course, everybody's new. So there's, you know, over almost 600 people left to work. But then you see what happens. Okay, clearly in the middle of the night, there's nobody on anyway, so there's nothing new to work. But you go from a complete, you know, rate fest down to this thing where at times in the afternoon, we're getting down to 10 people on the band anywhere that are available for you to work, who may or may not be in a skip zone. You may not have prop to them. You may not find them. Who knows? They made a queue. So it's a radically different contest. In fact, it's the same for both of us. And I think that is the same for all competitors. That's why I made the crack about Sunday afternoon. You're just K9RS. If you would have gotten on, this graph would have moved up just a little bit. You could have seen it. So it's, you know, it's a strange contest in the sense that when you're behind, you're in a world of hurt. And at some point you can see there are fewer people for me, but the differences are trivial. So that's the way it is. It's not a surprise, but it makes it a different kind of contest. So now we get into strategy.
Yeah, so I looked at past winning logs, which was great because Pat had the past winning logs. And he sent those over, and I was like, okay, what did Pat do? That's what I need to do. And then he talked about off time, and I was like, okay, I have no idea what to do. But luckily, N6MJ and W9KKN are like, hey, we've done sweepstakes a whole bunch. Do this. Okay, well, I'll do that. And it was pretty dang close to being optimal, especially after that graph. So playing to the strengths of the station, in-band capable. One of the things that was always pushed into my brain ever since I had started contesting, especially starting in 2001, was every QSO counts, and you need to work absolutely everybody, and you got to push 100% every single time. And that's what I did. And with less than one QSO per hour, that makes a big difference. And especially 20 and 40, I seem to be pretty loud there, even though I don't have the biggest antennas. The 2B SIQ is kind of an arrow in your quiver, I guess you could say, for this contest. I certainly don't think it's worth doing all the time because you miss all the casual guys if you're not tuning around. And I found a good kind of mix between both of those, which is kind of unusual. So not to bore you with the details, but it's a very different contest that way. The second radio, man, I pushed it super hard. If I got slow and I got complacent, it was like, ah, crap, I got to stop doing this. Okay, go in band, do something else. So actually a lot of stress for 8 Qs an hour. So kind of a hard to read graph here, but breaking it down by call areas, KM7W had quite a few more I guess quite a few more is being relative, but East Coast, one land, somehow I managed to capitalize on that. I got total opposite of Pat on 20 and 40, which was kind of the strategy, and you just kind of have to figure out who's where. So I guess I got lucky there, but playing to your strengths is important. If 40 is such a big band, everyone shows up there eventually. So if you look at the hours, I kind of graphed it out. Pat was ahead until 06 Zulu, and then I was ahead the rest of the contest, and it's really hard to catch up. So Pat was kind of at a disadvantage there. Somehow my off time was better. Band strategy played out, but it felt good making that graph actually. My in-band made a big difference, and I have a slide about that somewhere, but it's a game of millimeters on sweepstakes, which was kind of interesting versus flat out running all the time. I have not seen this one. That's cool. You want to talk about this one?
Well, not that much difference in the signal strength. I mean, a 3 high stack on 20 doesn't buy you much in a domestic contest, okay? So this is the 40-meter spots, and I thought in the daylight hours that Chris would kill me. He's further east, nice low antenna, super QTH, but really not that much difference, so I can't blame anything about the station.
That's cool. All right, I like that slide. Widest QSO margin, late morning, and this, where the line kind of changed, where he has the arrow to N9RV, I had my most in-band QSOs ever during those 2 hours. And if I go look at the log, that was definitely a deciding factor. So 200 miles apart made a big difference, like he said. I was running 40 when he was kind of treading water. There's only so many guys to work in sweepstakes. And if you miss it by an hour or 30 minutes, you're out of luck. Let's see. I didn't go to 15 early. You know, that's kind of the West Coast standard. Go to 15. You can be the captive audience. I didn't do that. It was a gamble. I guess it paid off. I had 33 in-band QSOs, and the total difference in QSOs at Pat was 25 before a log check. So I would say that that was my weapon of choice that I decided to use. It worked out pretty well. Pat's experience, he destroyed me the first day, no question. So is there a slide in here about the scoreboard? Is this it? We didn't plan very well for this. So the scoreboard I had up, and I was watching it, and I was behind, and blah, blah, blah. And then when I was ahead, I had to take my last off time. And I'm sitting there, and I'm watching Pat gain QSOs the last hour and a half. And I was super stressed out. Stomach's in knots. I'm like, I just did all this work, and I'm in the lead, and this guy's going to pass me in the last 20 minutes. So I shut it off, and I walked away. And when the contest ended, I turned it back on, and it was like, whew, finally. So the scoreboard's good and bad. I guess that's it. It was a great contest.